Yung iniisip siguro ng iba na, wow, okay, nasa abroad siya, OFW, parang okay, marami siyang pera, ganun. Hindi kasi you have to save din. Tapos malaki din yung cost of living outside.
No matter what job you have, basta nasa abroad ka, parang yung notion nila is, oh, madami yung pera. So
Pwedeng
parang,
umutang.
yung parang, so many people will message you, oy, pahiram, mga ganun.
Kumusta ug maayong adlaw kabayan? Welcome back to the Pinoy Expat. My name is Icon and I am your host. Dito sa Pinoy Expat, pag-uusapan natin ang iba't ibang aspeto ng buhay ng Pilipino sa ibang bansa. Ngayong araw kasama natin si Ivy at April, dalawang nurse na galing ng Middle East, pumunta ng UK at ngayon nandito na sa Australia. Samahan niyo ako at pakinggan natin ang kanilang kwento. Ivy, April, good morning and welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
So, April, you went to UAE intending to work as a nurse, pero nag-iba yung plano mo quickly. Tell us, anong nangyari?
Okay, so ganito yun. May delay lang siya sa visa processing. So when I arrived in UAE, wala na yung job na supposed to be gagawin ko. And then, since wala na, I have to look for another job or else uuwi ako ng Pilipinas. I look for nursing jobs, but since hindi pa ako pasok dun sa 2-year experience which allows me to take the exam, yung exam sa UAE, so I have to look for another job na outside of nursing jobs.
So, walk us through that decision kasi sabi mo, less than 2 years yung experience mo sa Pilipinas. Bakit hindi mo hinintay na ma-convert yung license mo?
So I was very excited to go abroad. Firstly, to travel, then to work and provide for my family. So yun yung main reason ko. That's why nakapag-decide ako na like less than a year after passing the board exam, sabi ko, I want to go abroad.
Okay, so parang gusto mo na, you were very eager na.
Yes, I was. I'm planning to like work sa Philippines to give back, but I don't want to stay in there. That was my plan back
So,
then.
medyo parang ang hirap na, no?
Yes, so it's difficult to be a nurse back home. That's the reason why.
And then you ended up working sa catering industry.
Yes.
How did you come to terms with the fact na registered nurse ka sa Pilipinas pero working ka sa catering industry sa UAE?
At the back of my mind, I don't want to go home since I was excited to go abroad. And I don't want to disappoint like my family na nag-abroad ako then just went home right away. To me, anything that would help them. I guess hindi ko na tiningnan yung pagiging... Kasi I have other people who I've met in there, like clinical instructors, doctors who've worked different paths. So for me, parang hindi ko siya tiningnan na ay kailangang nurse ako, dapat nurse na job talaga. So I just went for it.
Right. Ivy, working as a nurse in Saudi is very different from working as a nurse in the Philippines. What part of that experience changed you personally or professionally?
Siguro more on being culturally sensitive and aware. Kasi yun nga, sobrang different. Mas nirespeto ko yung iba-ibang kultura, tradisyon, tapos outside work and also sa hospital.
Alright. Nung narinig mo yung kwento ni April na galing sa nurse tapos nagpumunta ng UAE pero working in the catering industry, what stood out to you the most?
Actually, mas na-admire ko yung drive niya, yung passion niya na to help her family kasi nilunok niya yung pride niya. I mean, it's not a bad thing na nag-iba siya ng job. Kasi kahit sa Pilipinas, mahirap, less yung opportunities for nurses. So kahit yung iba, either nagdo-doktor or call center, ganun. So mas na-admire ko siya lalo kasi yung love niya for her family to support. Yun lang.
Very admirable. What is one struggle or reality in Saudi and UAE that almost every Filipino worker there will immediately recognize?
I guess yun nga, number one is homesickness. Kasi it's so hard living in another country na wala kang relatives or family, or even if you have one or two, nasa ibang places sila. So, one is homesickness.
Ako yad ko lang, personally din, is practicing faith. Kasi they're so strict. Siyempre, it's Islam country. So, we cannot practice kasi both kami are Christians, Catholic, ganun. So, yun yung naging struggle ko.
How did you deal with that? Being a faithful servant tapos parang now you're in a country na very strict?
More on online. So, yung nagjo-join ako online sa mga conferences, tas mass online din. So, yeah, it was very hard. Pero 2 years lang naman. So, nakayanan ko naman. And I also met some other friends and sisters, brothers and sisters. Pero yun, hindi lang kami makapag-worship, ganon. So, we just talk about, parang more on fellowship, ganon. Pero nothing like about worshiping. More on fellowship lang.
So, hindi siya very open, gano'n?
Hindi talaga. I don't know now. I heard they're more open. Pero yun, back in my time, hindi. So, struggle.
Right. Talking about that, no, siguro Sunday or during your day off, paint us a picture. What does a day off look like for a Filipino worker in Saudi and UAE?
Ko, simple lang. Like, I would wake up really late, siguro mga before lunch. And then I would go to the mall kasi walking distance lang siya. I would have lunch there, then back to sa bahay, then laundry, all that stuff. Tapos pahinga, then Korean novela. That was my pastime. Because there's nothing else to do, like there's nothing to study.
What about like Filipino communities, friends mo, mga gano'n?
Sometimes, I would go to my friends there in other place. I would stay there overnight. Iikot lang kami dun sa lugar nila, then eat out, yun lang.
What about you, Ivy?
Ako parang ano din, similar. So yun, wake up, tapos mag-grocery, magluluto, maglilinis, the usual chores. Pero my times na, since mayroon nga ako ibang friends na na-meet doon, and actually some other friends from my hometown, so yung nag-gather kami, pero syempre babae lang. Kasi bawal magsama yung babae sa lalaki.
And was this a struggle for you or was it more like mas okay to na babae lang kaming lahat?
Hindi naman siya naging struggle for me. Well, marami din naman akong friends na lalaki, pero feeling ko mas marami kaming nagagawa ng mga babae. Kahit siguro sa bahay lang, marami kaming pwedeng gawin. So, hindi naman siya naging struggle.
What is one perk in your respective home countries that you miss the most?
Parang hindi lang isa.
Okay, sige, mukhang marami kang namimiss.
Kasi wala to sa UK and dito sa Australia, syempre tax-free. Back then, I don't know now. So lahat ng sahod mo, sa'yo yun. Nakukuha mo lahat kasi wala kang tax. Tapos, free accommodation. So may housing allowance, may food allowance, in cash yun. And free din yung flights. Yeah, flights from Saudi, return Saudi to Philippines.
Wow, that's really nice. Sana
Yeah.
all.
Tapos mahaba din yung ano nila, yung leave allowance, kahit mga 5 weeks, ganun.
Right. What about you, April?
Ako kasi I was in catering services. Hindi free yung accommodation namin. I think we have to pay for the accommodation, but free return ticket from like, let's say, Abu Dhabi or Dubai to Philippines, then vice versa. And then paid leave. Yes, every Ramadan, kasi nagko-close yung school, kasi nasa school yung kinikater namin, we have to go home. We can go home, rather. Yeah.
Tapos i-add ko lang, grabe sila mag-sale. No?
Sale.
Yeah, parang napauso ata yun sa mga Pilipino pag sale, nandun na sa mall. Kasi sobrang mura. Tapos wala ngang tax.
Ang sarap ng gano'n na parang yung buong buo, kung ano yung offer sa'yo, yun talaga yung makukuha mo.
Kaya naka-save din.
Mas maganda sa inyo.
Oh, pero
Sa Saudi.
may perks. My perks. I mean, my cons. Kasi nga, walang freedom, like total freedom.
Right.
Unless sa inyo, mas open.
Mas open,
Sa amin,
yes.
super close.
So, talagang super tight sa kingdom. Wait lang ha, kasi I'm not sure. Kailan ba tong back then na to? Anong year to?
So, I was there from 2014 to 2016.
Right. And sa iyo?
Me, I was there from 2013 to 2015.
Right. So, 2015 ka umalis, 2016 ka naman umalis.
Yeah.
Talking about perks, tell us one moment where you felt really grateful na nasa Saudi ka at saka nasa UAE.
Ako siguro dahil nga ang goal ko is to provide for my family, to help a little bit. Parang one perk is having a job. So no matter what the job was, parang for me, it's more on like I'm earning. So that's a good thing.
So you're really grateful just to be there
Yeah.
and work regardless of
And to
anything
be able to see like, you know, the other world outside the Philippines. I
Right.
think that's one thing, yeah.
What about you, Ivy?
Ako, i-connect ko lang gratefulness na nabigyan ng opportunity na mag-work doon. Kasi hindi ganun kabilis din. Although, mas easier siya kaysa sa Western countries. Kaya naging stepping stone yung Saudi. Pero hindi din naging madali. Tapos, yun nga, maraming nurses, maraming nag-a-apply. So, grateful ako dahil yun, nagkaroon ako ng opportunity. Tapos, it made me also appreciate and also admire yung OFW. Na ang hirap mahiwalay sa pamilya, ganun. Pero since yun, gusto mo makapag-provide, At syempre, for greener pastures and makapag-explore outside world, outside country, outside the Philippines,
Yeah.
mas malaki
Oo.
yung opportunities.
Yeah,
Yun.
true.
So, gratefulness sa opportunities. Yun lang.
Now, you were talking about, sabi mo, hindi lahat na nakakapunta doon, hindi yung na-appreciate mo yung journey ng
Yung journey,
OFW. What is one thing about being an OFW that people back in the Philippines will never understand unless sila maging OFW rin?
Well, hindi ganun kadaling kumita ng pera. Yung iniisip siguro ng iba na, wow, okay, nasa abroad siya, OFW, parang, okay, marami siyang pera, ganun. Hindi kasi you have to save din. Tapos malaki din yung cost of living outside. I mean, siguro sa Middle East, nung time namin, hindi masyado. Pero sa UK and here,
Right.
yeah. So, hindi madali.
I just want to add to that, yung parang back home, ang mga tao, they think na yun nga, napakarami mong pera, no matter what job you have, basta nasa abroad ka, parang yung notion nila is, madami yung pera.
Pwedeng
So parang, yung parang, so many people will message you, oy, pahiram, mga ganun.
Right. Pero yung sagot mo, I guess, in general, kasi sabi mo, sa Saudi, tax-free kayo, free accommodation, food, transport pa, and everything.
Pero syempre, hindi din kalakihan yung sahod compare sa UK and here sa Australia.
Right,
Mas
okay.
malaki pa din dito.
Yung sahod kasi, like, pag nasa abroad ka, di ba, it's just fair lang. Kung ano yung pera mo, kinikita mo, enough lang siya sa mga expenses mo, like bills mo, and
nakakasave
it's
pa
not
din
much.
naman.
Oo, pero
May
kung
savings pa
i-compare mo dun sa Philippines na, lalaki na yung sahod mo. That's why they thought na you have a lot of money. Parang
Right. And then I guess kasi ikaw, you went there to support your family.
Yeah.
Regular ka rin nagpapadala sa Pilipinas.
Yes.
Yes. So nagkakilala kayong dalawa sa workplace. What made you guys think right away nung nagkakilala kayo, magkakasundo kami nito?
Siguro yung napag-usapan namin na nung nalaman namin, okay, galing kami parehong Middle East, so isa yon. Tapos mas naging close nga kasi nga same kami galing din sa SFC community. So siya sa Pilipinas, ako din sa Pinas. So yun, nalaman namin na same kami galing sa SFC community. Tapos, same kami, born in April. So, Aris, baby.
And she's a social butterfly.
I
So
was.
she
Still am, but-
you still are. Parang, sorry na. Pero, yun nga, parang, since we worked at the same department back then, tapos parang we have a big Filipino community sa theater. Parang we are 40 plus siguro in theater, yung Filipinos.
Yeah.
Dami.
So, yes, madami. So, we gather from time to time, no? And then, they're very welcoming sa UK. If you're new talagang, oy, kumusta ka? They ask you to come to their houses, for example, nagpa-potluck, and then,
Parang naging family kami doon. So, mas hindi namin masyadong na-feel yung homesickness. Kasi, ang lamig sa UK. Tapos, may times na, most of the time, gloomy, ganun. So,
Very.
nakaka-affect ng mood.
Right.
Gihira lang kami maano sa sun. Kaya, konting sun lang yun. Magba-barbecue kami, mag-gather. Ang dami naming gatherings doon compared here.
actually.
Nakakamiss sila.
But what really made you guys connect is yung shared experience ninyo sa Middle East.
Sa Middle East, tapos SFC.
Oo,
Same
SFC.
fate. Yun.
Oo.
April, what made you choose to return to the nursing path? And bakit UK yung feeling mo na, okay, sa UK ako?
So, in my mind and in my heart, gusto ko talaga yung nursing. Hindi ko na-feel yung mag-work for the long time sa, like, as a waitress or in the catering services or other jobs. So, I thought, I'll just practice nursing. And that time, yung UK was the not easiest compared to other country, pero siguro mas quicker yung process in order to go abroad compared to US or Canada or Australia. And then with the UK, pagdating mo doon, may work ka na agad. You don't need to study. So yeah, I opted to go to the UK for those reasons.
So sabi mo may trabaho ka na kaagad pagdating mo doon. 2015 umalis ka ng UAE, pero before then, less than a year yung experience mo as a nurse. Tapos UK ka na. What did you have to do to be able to work in the UK as a nurse?
So, nag-back to working in the hospital ako. So, when I arrived in the Philippines from UAE, bumalik ako sa hospital, nag-work
Right.
ako in different departments. Worked in small hospital na may general wards. And then, I worked sa DOH as a community nurse for almost a year. And then, I worked in the theaters back home in the Philippines before ako pumunta sa UK.
Yeah. And
So,
gaano katagal yun?
that was 2016 to 2019.
Right. So around
they're-
mga 3
mga
years.
3 years.
In hindsight, hindi mo ba naisip na mabuti pa pala, inantay ko na lang bago ako, alam mo yun? Because you were very eager
Yeah.
na pumunta ng UAE back then. In hindsight, hindi mo ba naisip na dapat pala nung una, nagstay na lang talaga ako saglit para pagdating ko UAE, I was working as a nurse?
When I passed the board exam and I started working, parang everything they offer to newbies are mag-volunteer ka. Volunteer ka, volunteer ka, volunteer ka. Wherever you go, you have to volunteer. When I started working and I volunteered for like 8 months, doon ko nakita na parang hindi siya, I mean, it's okay experience-wise to gain those experience, but I feel like it won't support me or my family. Kaya I was so eager to go abroad.
And did your experience in the UAE, regardless na outside siya sa nursing na experience, did that help you land actual nursing jobs in the Philippines?
Hindi.
Okay, so paano ka ngayon na, did you still have to volunteer or paano?
Yes, so I started again as a volunteer. Pero mga ano na lang siya, 1 or 2 months. And then they would hire you as job order kasi maliit na hospital lang siya. So I worked there as a job order and the pay was very very minimal. Sobrang liit ng sahod. And then I have to apply for DOH kasi mas okay yung sahod. And then after DOH, I have to find another job because it's not, wala siyang security.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So eventually, those experiences allowed you to work in the UK.
More like it's a process, right? So ang UK naman, they're not looking for experience that time, as far as I know. They just need you to pass the requirements,
Right.
like to pass the CBT, the IELTS exam, and you can be qualified to work there as a nurse. But because ako, while processing, since you don't have the money to process, I have to work on
Right.
the side para may process ako.
Yeah, okay, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Ivy, your family is here in Australia. Bakit ka pa nag-UK instead na going here directly?
So, nung time na yun, actually, my plan originally was sa Australia talaga. Tapos, I was doing my IELTS review. Tapos, I met a friend who also went back home from Saudi. Tapos, nag-review din siya for IELTS English exam. Tapos, sabi niya, why not mag-UK muna ako? Kasi nga, mas madali. Like, they give you work visa straight away, whilst dito kailangan mo mag-aral. Sabi ko, oh, okay, sige, kung maipasa ko yung interview, maybe that meant na mas pumunta ako doon kaysa dito. Tapos, so yun, naipasa ko nga. So sabi ko, okay, God's will na mag-UK muna ako. Which is actually a good opportunity din sa akin kasi nakapag-travel ako, ganun sa Europe, ganun. Tapos sabi ko, sige, gain more experience. Tapos bago ako lumipat dito, at least work visa na agad. Tapos na ako, spend time with my family here. Hindi ko lang din gusto na humingi ng tulong from my family here. Parang ayoko sila i-bother. Gusto ko my own blood and sweat.
All right.
Na makapagtrabaho. Oo. Natagalan nga lang, naging 5 years kasi dahil sa pandemic. Pero it's okay. Blessing pa din yun for me.
But all along, Australia talaga yung end goal mo.
Yeah. Even before Saudi, Australia talaga. Hindi lang siya naging madali. Ako din, personally, ayoko na mag-aral. Gusto ko na mag-work agad.
Right. So, nasa UK na kayo, and then, kagano kayo katagal sa UK?
Ako 5 years.
Got 3.5 years.
Right. And then, you decided to go to Australia almost at the same time.
Parang.
Okay.
Ako, personally, I was thinking about it na kasi nga, I don't see myself na tumagal sa UK because firstly, ang layo niya sa Pinas. So, my goal that time was to go home every now and then, especially kung birthday ng parents ko. I want to be able to go home na hindi masyadong puyat, pagod sa
24 hours
travel.
travel.
Yes, it's very long. And then, secondly, siguro yung weather. It was very depressing for me. And given na I don't have relatives there, I don't have family. So parang mas prone to depression yung lugar for me. So I didn't see myself staying there. So naghanap ako ng place na like, I was thinking of a place na parang, gusto ko nang mas malapit sa Pinas. And at the same time, good yung living condition. And yeah, Australia came to mind.
So actually, hindi pa niyan shinare agad na nag-a-apply. Gusto niyang lumipat ng Australia.
Right.
Tapos naalala ko sa isang Filipino community, may party. Tapos nabanggit niya eventually na lilipat siya ng Australia. Tapos sabi ko, oy, ako din. Gusto ko din mag-apply. So since nalaman niya na doon nga may mag-a-apply ako dito, may family ako dito. Tapos sabi ko, sige, mag-apply tayo as one. Nalala mo, ano yun? Parang pandemic na sa bahay ako. In-apply ko kami pareho.
Right.
Same hospital. Actually, iba yung gusto niya. Gusto niya mag-Melbourne.
Oo.
May certain hospital na gusto siya.
Pero sinabi mo yung, may workmate siya na from Wollongong, right? Sa recovery. Is she from Wollongong?
Oo, from Wollongong.
Yeah. Oo, tapos sinabi niya na maganda yung Wollongong. So try.
Saka meron din akong malapit na family dito.
Right.
Tapos mas maging easy kasi nga, di ba sabi mo, sige, try muna natin magkasama. Tapos kung gusto mong lumipat.
Oo, lilipat na lang ako.
Right. Okay. Now, after knowing na, alam mo, ay, mag-a-apply din pala siya. Uy, nag-a-apply din pala siya. Was that more comforting or did that somehow, I guess, double the pressure na you have to make Australia work? Kasi, uy siya, nag-a-apply, dapat ako din.
To me, it was comforting.
Yes, same. Kasi knowing na it's too far and that's another country again. So parang it's very comforting to know that you have someone with you na to start the process and to be with you pagdating doon kasi you don't know anyone.
Tsaka ako kahit may family ako dito, syempre iba pa din yung lilipat ka sa ibang bansa, 'di ba? Another journey din yun, 'di ba? So comforting na at least pareho kami ng mapagdadaanan, gano'n.
Nice. And I guess it was it made your Middle East shared experience na, kasi parang somehow kapitbahay na kayo sa Middle East, may shared experience na. So it was a lot more comforting. Yeah.
Yes.
It was meant to be.
BFF.
Yes.
So, nung nag-apply kayo dito sa Wollongong Hospital and then they eventually offered the visa 482, which is temporary visa, was that more relief or disappointment?
Ako siguro 50-50. Relief because may nahanap kang job and may nag-offer ng visa, and also relief that you'll be living the depressing country and going to,
Talagang depressing country. Okay.
Sorry, hindi naman. In my own opinion lang yan. So, for me, it's a relief because, yun nga, may nag-offer ng visa. But somehow, I was aiming for the PR kasi nga yung gastos, the transition's gonna be expensive. Yung tickets and everything, staying in another country, you don't know the cost yet. And then yung wala ka masyadong ipon because you're sending money home and you've traveled, madami kang expenses. And the entire process itself costs a lot. So, yun. So parang somehow it's okay na may nag-offer. It was good. But at the same time, parang at the back of your mind, you're thinking, what's next? Then gastos ulit.
Ako naman ng time na yun, gusto ko lang talagang makaalis na ng UK. Hindi naman sa super depressing. Siyempre, may friends na rin kami dun na turn into family. Nakakamiss din. Pero mas gusto ko na makasama yung family ko dito. Tapos, time na yung pandemic yun or after pandemic. So parang, gusto ko nang makaalis. So parang, kung ano na lang yung opportunity, yung 482 visa, which is actually good naman, work visa na rin. So yun, grinab na namin. Pero nung lumipat na ako dito, tapos sabi ko, oh my God, sana pala naghintay na lang ako ng PR. Kasi doble gastos, iba na naman yung process. Pero, hindi din natin alam kasi yung iba, kasi may join kami na Filipino nurses,
Group.
New Zealand, UK, group for nurses nga na gustong lumipat from the UK. UK to Australia, may mga ano din sila na experience na ang tagal bago sila nagkaroon ng PR visa. Yung iba naman na nandito na mabilis lang daw. So, iba
Oo, that's the thing. So,
mahirap.
iba-iba yung process
iba-iba yung
Iba-iba yung
experience.
waiting time, iba-iba yung experience. Kaya hindi mo din masabi na, ay, magantay ka na lang for PR or go for...
So you just really grab kung anong nandun at that
Oo,
time.
parang
right?
ganun.
I think ano din yun. Timing na rin talaga na binigay sa atin ng Lord.
Did you at least try to negotiate or sinabi niya lang, ito lang yung in-offer, sige, tanggapin na natin?
Yun lang ata kasi yung in-offer nila.
Me, I did ask. I did ask. Pero sabi nila, yan lang ang offer nila
Right.
at the moment, that time.
Okay.
Actually, meron din isang visa, 186 ba yun? Yung tied up ka with the employer.
Oh, yun yung
PR
sponsor
yun.
visa.
Hindi naman alam kung mabilis din yun.
Oo.
So, yun.
So, going from Philippines, Middle East, UK, and now finally here, ang dami niyong migration journey. Ano yung mga lessons na natutunan ninyo through each migration na dala-dala ninyo hanggang ngayon dito sa Australia?
Go.
Fair dyan. Siguro, firstly, life is hard. May difficulty talaga in every process. But if you have a goal, you just have to push through it. So, hindi madali yung na-fail ka sa IELTS, yung magre-review ka while you don't have the job or you have a minimum paying job. It's hard thinking na you'll be away from your family. So parang despite all the struggles and the trials, kung may pangarap ka and you really want to achieve it, huwag kang susuko. And have faith. It's very important kasi mapapalayo ka sa family mo and you'll face so many struggles like starting from another country, starting from scratch, and magtiwala ka lang and you just keep reaching your goals.
Laban. Puso.
Laban lang. Yes.
Ako, same kay April, tas i-add ko lang yung siguro sa akin. Para sa akin, every journey or every experience na naranasan ko in each country, I believe is meant to happen. Destiny yun. Na kahit gusto ko man agad from the Philippines to Australia, hindi nangyari. Pero hindi ako, no regrets. Kasi I believe kung saan ako nilagay ni Lord, meant ako doon. I've gained experiences, I've gained friends that turn into family. Tapos yun, trials na na-overcome ko, nag-gain ako ng confidence, faith in myself, faith in Him, and sa people na na-meet ko, nag-share din sila ng experiences nila na grateful ako. Siguro it made me more grateful lang talaga in every journey. Tapos eventually, nandito na sa Australia.
Yeah.
Nakapag-travel.
Yeah.
Ang dami.
And I guess yung mga hardships na yun will shape you and will make you really grateful kung ano yung na-achieve mo, kung nasan ka ngayon. Kasi you will see so many phases of life and of other people's life as well.
Part talaga yun ng journey.
Yung parang sometimes you will compare and then you will look down on yourself kasi dun sa mga struggles mo. But when you see other people, makikita mong you're blessed.
Yeah,
You're
appreciate
blessed.
talaga
So,
blessings.
maging grateful ka talaga.
Right. Well, thank you for those wonderful lessons and I hope marami tayong audience na maka-resonate dun sa stories ninyo. Well, thank you so much, Ivy and April, for your stories. Thank you for sharing them here in our channel.
Thank you too.
Well, that's it for now, guys. This has been another wonderful episode of The Pinoy Expat. If you want more videos like this, make sure to follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel and me on TikTok. Once again, my name is Icon and you're watching The Pinoy Expat. See ya!